Yeah, FOMCs in minutes, and this is where crypto gets real stupid. First move is usually mad, and Powell is usually the trigger. And Oz, what are we watching on Bitcoin right now? A few scenarios, hawkish, dovish, but the crypto bros are probably just on a usual flex, trading on the 1 minute charts, seeing the volatility, that the importance of these FOMC is actually going to have a massive move on the rest of the cycle. And we're looking at this live as a reaction at the moment.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting, right? So, in a couple of minutes, we got the decision, and it's, if we go to the percentages, 97% that they're going to hold, and they won't cut rates today. But there's only a few things. There's only three things really I care about, right? For what's going to happen with the Fed cut. So the main things or the hold. The main thing I care about is the 2 year. So what's the 2 year treasury going to do? So I got that up here as well. On my macro sort of charts, the dollar and also credit. So these are the short term moves. You're going to get a lot of volatility probably happening around these. In the next minute or so, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And what you have to understand is probably the press conference and the wording. They probably will hold today. Okay, they probably will hold. And the game is in the wording. Or do they hint at softer jobs, ample reserves? Or do they lean tough and talk inflation nerves? Well, these are the sort of key things that we have to kind of look at. And we got to read into. It's not really, 97% say it's going to hold today. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think there's two simple paths. Same rate. Is it a softer tone? So path A would be yes, they're holding. So let's actually see what they're doing now. Yep. So it's no change.
Yeah. So it's holding, and the tone is a dovish one, Oz, that you can see at the moment, or a bit of a hawkish flex. Just
gonna listen to it now, see exactly what they're saying.
Yeah, so at the moment we can obviously look at the charts as well, and what's been happening with the charts and how the traders are actually reacting on a live one. And you've got the daily chart there, but
let's go into the 10-minute chart, right? Because that's probably so you can see the volatility. I wouldn't be so trigger happy going to a full long personally. Basically, I think Bitcoin's bottomed generally as a bigger thing. Just listening to, it's quite a neutral statement, I think, at the moment. They don't emphasize jobs, they don't emphasize inflation. Yeah, so looking at this, I just think it's a very neutral, basically, decision. So I don't think it's much. And you can see the chart right now. You can see how it's going down. Let's actually look at the let's see the 2 year. The 2 year has actually increased quite a lot so that's quite volatile. Let's see what what's happened to the DXY. Little surge from the DXY. Sometimes you always fade the first move. So sometimes you have to always fade the first move and see what happens. It's going to be very volatile in this situation. Let's look at the stock market. Because the stock market is also, the 10-minute chart, stock market making a sort of a spinning top candle, what do they call it? What's that? Star Wars? The lightsaber candle?
Yeah. The double
Darth Maul sort of candle, killing the longs and shorts. So I would wait for now the actual press conference, which is going to come up, in about 20 minutes or so. But let me just see if there's anything on the transcript that I can see. Just give me a second. So it's also interesting that it was 10-2. So 10 voted for holding, and 2 said they should cut. So that's quite important. So I'll just give you a quick rundown of it. Just give me a second. So let's go through the wording. The markets actually are quite volatile at the moment. They're quite volatile. It's always interesting to see the markets. So the three things I'm looking at is the 2 year, DXY, and credit. Nothing's really happened too much at the moment. But let's go through the actual statement, and I think the statement's going to be quite important. What's happening in this? It's so this is what they said. They said growth is solid, jobs weak but stabilizing, inflation still elevated. Okay, so there's two dovish dissents in there. Like I said, they want a 25% cut. That tilts the bias towards easing next. So 10-2. So there's two descents. There's no new stimulus, but the door is open. Employment risk is on their mind. Inflation talk is steady. It's not hotter, so that's something key to think about as well. This keeps the front end anchored. If break-evens hold, real can drift down, which is the real rates, and the reals are, like I always say, I'll show you it here. Where is it on my? So these are the reals. So you know we want the reals to go down to around 1.6, 1.8%. What this says is the hold is confirmed. The tone is jobs away. So they're looking more at jobs now. Inflation is steady. For me, this is quite a neutral. I would say a neutral FOMC, but there is signs of a dovish easing potentially in the future, because there are two dissenters in there. So it's going to be interesting how this happens. But they're looking at employment risk a lot more than inflation, which is quite interesting as well. So yeah, that's a quick reaction for the FOMC. I wouldn't be trading this personally, right? Unless you got your levels and everything marked out. The next 30 minutes in the press conference is going to get even more I would say crazy probably in the press conference. But as a whole, in terms of Bitcoin, I think it's bottomed personally. Like if you look at it on a longer term picture, I think this is going up. So and we'll have a market update probably a bit later soon. Yeah, a bit later in the next video. But yeah, so it's an interesting FOMC. This is the most important FOMC until the next one. So that's how it always happens. It's not really a lot of people get crazy around these FOMC meeting dates, but for me it's just a bit of fun. And so nothing too exciting today. Just as we expected, 97% expected a hold, and it was a hold at the end.
Yeah, so Oz, looking at that tone statement and Powell and what actually mattered, you talked about the vote, that was announced. There was 10-2 with the dissenters signaling anything. Now, from that perspective and from the tone used in the announcement, particularly when it's talking about, it was job heavy and so on and so forth. If I had to put a gun to your head and ask you about that tone, what would you say? Like more dovish inclined, or calm flex, or something a bit more sinister behind these words?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Obviously, the press conference still has to happen. But what I would say, this is a neutral tone, so it's neutral with a soft dovish lean. And the reason I say that is, of course, they held the rates, right? They called inflation somewhat elevated, growth solid, okay. Jobs are weak but stabilizing. It's cautious. It's not crazy bullish. Like everything's fine now, but it's cautious with a soft dovish lean, I would say. There's two dissents wider cut. That tilts the bias towards easing next, not tightening, because the dissenters wanted to cut. So that's something to think about as well. Obviously, with the new Fed chair coming in possibly as well later on this year. It's a classic data dependent. It's the same old Fed, data dependent, keeping options open, not promising anything. So, for me, if you're going to look at this now, look at the 2-year, look at the DXY, look at the credit spreads. If the 2-year starts popping and credit spreads widen, then that could be a problem for risk assets. But if credit is still calm and the 2-year doesn't pop, after all this settles down, it starts drifting lower, and then you can see risk assets really start, rising again. So at the moment, it's just a neutral to, I would say, a soft dovish lean for this FOMC, just from what we got. But obviously, we'll get a lot more coming up in the press
Next
conference.
10-15 minutes.
Yeah, 10-15 minutes. So, we'll stay tuned.
Okay, so there you have it, viewers, and we're just giving you a quick reaction on the FOMC meeting. Tone is neutral, slightly leaning towards a dovish flex, and you can see that the markets on FOMC days, as you would expect, volatile, but still within that 89, mid 89s. Bitcoin is reacting, and we'll see what happens in the next 20 minutes or so. And yeah, so what's your position? Leave your comments. How you feeling about the FOMC, or in general the FOMC meetings? Do you just see it as background noise and just do the full cycle, or are you trading on a daily? And yeah, see you in the next one.